everyone. Welcome to another Authors at Google Talk. We are thrilled to have you here and very excited to welcome Michael Bungay Stanier. Michael is the author of Do More Great Work, Stop the Busy Work, and Start the Work That Matters. He's the senior partner of Box of Crayons and founding member.
I make up my own title, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
You can find him online at boxofcrayons.biz. Some fun facts about Michael. He's from Australia, but currently lives in Toronto. He was sued for defamation by one of his lecturers when he was graduating law school. Interesting story there, it wasn't his fault. And he was also a Rhodes Scholar and named the first Canadian Coach of the Year. Without further ado, Michael Bungay Stanier.
Perfect.
Great.
Hey. Thanks, everyone. Look, it's really great that you're here. I know you're busy people and you've got 1,000 things to be doing, so it's great that you could show up here and spend 30 minutes, 40 minutes or so with me. Now, let me ask you, because I'm going to just give you a taste of what's in the book. Has anybody here heard the name or know the name Milton Glaser? Does that ring any bells for anybody? Yeah, it rarely does. Unless you're kind of a design geek, you won't have heard of Milton Glaser, but you will know what he is most famous for, because Milton Glaser is the man behind this. He designed the I Love New York logo. And this, in fact, is what he sketched out on the back of a taxi on the way to this initial meeting to actually pitch the idea to go, how do we get people to come and visit New York because nobody wants to visit us in the 1970s? So Milton Glaser designed this, but he also wrote a book called Art is Work. Now, this is not a book that you need to rush out and get because it's mainly a coffee table book with lots of pictures of his designs, and unless you're into those sort of things, you're not going to be interested. But at the start of his book, he says something very interesting. He says this: everything you do, not just your life here as a Googler, but beyond that, everything you do falls into one of three different categories. It's either bad work, good work, or great work. Bad work, good work, or great work. And it's a model, it's a simple model, and I love models. My theory is all models are wrong, but some are useful, and I think this is a wrong, useful model, right? Okay, so bad work, good work, and great work. And what I like about this is it's kind of intuitive, right? You start to get a sense of what it is right away. So what do you think I am talking about when I say bad work? What do you think I mean? This is an interactive session, by the way, so yeah, it's not a rhetorical question. So what do you reckon?
His work.
His work, yeah. Well, his reputation does precede him, so I understand that, yeah. Bad work, what do you reckon? Laziness could be. Yeah, what else? Bureaucracy, now you're getting there. What else?
Doesn't make you feel satisfied.
Doesn't make you feel satisfied. You guys are on the right path, but you're kind of being a bit polite about it, right? Bad work is the mind-numbing, soul-sucking, life-denying, stab myself in the eye with a pen because the pain doesn't stop type of work, right? It's bureaucracy, it's pointless meetings, it's paperwork, it's processes that tangle you up. I mean, it's like it just is there. And I want to give you two ways for you to think about and remember bad work. Here's a question. Does anybody know what this animal is?
Koala bear?
A koala bear? You're on the right continent, but you're so wrong, right? Not a koala bear. What else?
Tasmanian devil.
It's not a Tasmanian devil. It's not a wallaby. Wallabies are like baby kangaroos. It's a wombat, right? It's a wombat. And there's a reason I am showing you a wombat, okay? Apart from going, come on people, why haven't you been to Australia and actually met a wombat? They're kind of cute. They're like small hairy hippopotamuses, kind of, I guess. A wombat stands for a waste of money, bandwidth, and time. And I think that's actually a pretty good definition of what bad work is. Waste of money, bandwidth, and time. I'll give you another way of remembering bad work. In the UK, there's a company called Richer Sounds. Very successful. They've been in the Guinness Book of World Records for years for having really high retail sales per square foot, so they know what they're doing. And they have something at Richer Sounds called the Cut the Crap Committee. And the job of the Cut the Crap Committee is basically to go hunting wombats. It basically says, look, in a complex organization where we try and set up rules and structures so that we stay focused on what we're trying to do, bad work just inevitably happens. It grows like weeds through the sidewalk. And the Cut the Crap Committee, they take high potential managers every year, put them on this committee, and their job is to try and eliminate some of the bad work that is just springing up around them. So that's bad work. That makes sense? Good work. What do you think good work is about?
That you love doing.
Something you love doing, could be, yeah, for sure. What else? High quality, yep. Work that has impact. You know, you're on the right path for sure. The best way I can tell you about good work is it is your job description, right? It is work that is productive and efficient and focused and gets things done. It's what your boss wants you to do. It's what your boss's boss wants you to do. It's kind of what you get paid for. Google is in part set up to keep doing the good work because at a corporate level, at a strategic level, that's where the money comes from, right? That's where you have a customer, you have revenue, that's where your quarterly returns come from. So there is nothing inherently wrong with good work. In fact, good work is essential. But there are two things about good work that get in the way. The first is, well, actually, here's the best way of describing it to you. I want you to imagine this. I want you to imagine that it's a Friday afternoon. Okay? You have put in a typical busy week at work here at Google, and you're driving home or getting the subway or the bus or however it is that you get home from here, and you're thinking to yourself, well, holy cow, I put in another hard week's work here. Got up early, whipped out the phone or the BlackBerry or the iPad or whatever you do and started doing emails kind of immediately, maybe took it into the shower with you to keep going while you're staying on top of things, get to work early, get some good work done before the meetings start, and then you're in meetings the rest of the time, ate your lunch at your desk probably, worked through the afternoon even though you're kind of tired now and really want to have a bit of a nap, but no, you keep plowing on and you work late, get home, play with the family, maybe do just a catch-up emails in the evening before you go to bed, and you think to yourself, well, you know, I've put in my 40 hours or 50 hours or 60 hours, I've done my time. And you're thinking to yourself, Friday afternoon, I can barely remember anything I've done all week. Do you have that experience where you're like, I know I wasn't somewhere else. I would have remembered if I was somewhere else because I was definitely at work. I know I put in at least 40 hours of work, but I can't really remember what I spent my time doing. And that is good work. And the problem with good work is it keeps you stuck in a bit of a comfortable rut. It's not that you're not busy, it's not that you're not stressed. It's just that you're using a different part of your brain. Because you probably know a little bit about neuroscience, right? You've got two parts to your brain. You've got your prefrontal cortex here. It's your active brain. It's where you do all your decision making. It's where you do your planning. It's where it's your conscious mind. And then you have your unconscious mind back here. And basically your conscious mind is like a 10-cent computer compared to your unconscious mind that's like $1 million computer. That's the difference in power. And your conscious mind basically says, I have a limited amount of time, a limited amount of energy, a limited amount of resources. I've got to preserve this. So when you are doing good work, your active brain goes, you know what? Channel that into your unconscious mind as fast as possible. Save this for the tough stuff. So if you can't remember your bad work, your good work rather, if you can't remember your good work, it's because your conscious mind is going, you know what? Been there, done that. It's perfectly fine. It's important. I just don't need to really remember it. Good news is you're not losing it. You don't have our early onset Alzheimer's, right? The other challenging thing about good work is this. There's just so much of it, right? It just keeps coming at you. I mean, I'm sure you've had that experience before, like going on vacation perhaps, and you're like, okay, I'm off on a week's vacation. I've got to get on top of things. So you show up in the office at like 2 o'clock in the morning. You start randomly deleting emails to try and get your inbox down to less than 1,000. You start shredding paper. You put in a 48-hour day. And at the end of your 48 hours, you're like, I'm exhausted, but I'm on top of everything. I've got a clean slate. And then you show up the next day at work, and what's happened? Right? It's all come flooding back again, right? It's all filling up your life. Good work just keeps coming at you. You can't ever get on top of your good work. It's just an endless flow. So that's bad work and good work. I mean, here's the picture I love about good work. It's a little bit like that Escher drawing. You know, you keep walking around going, surely I'm making progress on some of this stuff, but it feels sometimes like you're stuck in the same spot. That takes me to great work, and this is what I'm all about. For us at Box of Crayons, it's all about how do we help people and teams do less good work and more great work. So what do you reckon great work's about?
Something you have a passion for.
Something you have a passion for sure. What else?
You lose track of time.
You lose track of time. You've had that moment, that kind of flow moment where kind of time speeds up and slows down all at the same time. Yep, great. What else?
Effective use of money, bandwidth, and time.
Exactly, love that. An effective use of money, bandwidth, and time, right? Opposite to the wombat. So that's exactly it. This is the work that you're like, when I signed up at Google, this is what I wanted to be doing, right? It's the work that lights you up. It's the work that has some meaning to you. It's the work that you care about. I mean, you know how sometimes it is when you're down the pub and somebody says, okay, so we're doing the small talk thing, so what do you do? And sometimes when you get asked that question, your heart sinks a little bit, right? And you're like, and then you wind up your internal PR agent and you kind of make your job look a little bit shinier than it actually is. And part of you is going, am I trying to convince them I have a really good job? Or am I trying to convince me I have a really awesome job, right? That's a good work moment. But when you're doing great work, you've got a great work project going on and somebody says, so what are you up to? And you start telling them about great work, you basically start chasing them around the pub, right? And they're sort of backing away from you going, God, dude, we're doing small talk here, relax, calm down, okay? So the challenge with great work, the challenge of great work is this. People are hungry for more of it, but on the one hand, it's like you are at a crossroads. On the one hand, you have all the excitement that you're talking about with great work, the work that you care about, the work that you're proud about, the work that gets you in at work early, that work that you wake up thinking about because you're so excited about it. But at the same time, you're standing at this crossroads, there's fear as well. Because this is the new work, the different work, the work that pushes you to the edge of your own level of comfort, your own level of competence, your own level of certainty. So we have this challenge with great work. On the one hand, we want more of it because it's the work that has meaning, it's the work that has impact. On the other hand, we have this attraction and comfort with good work. Good work is like this sort of black hole that keeps pulling us back in, keeping us safe because it's comfortable and it's familiar and it keeps us busy and it makes us sense that we know what we're doing. This making sense to you? Perfect. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I want you just to have a think about, as you think about your own work here at Google, imagine, if you will, a circle in your mind, and I want you to divide it, it's a pie chart, into 3 segments that represent how much bad work, how much good work, and how much great work that you're currently doing. How much bad, good, and great work you're currently doing. And what do you reckon the split is in your own mind in terms of how you're actually spending your time, and what's an example of each type of work for you? Some of you have got pen and paper, so you're welcome to write it down, but otherwise, just bring it to mind and have a think about how are you spending your time? How much bad, how much good, and how much great work? That's a sad laugh over there. Yep. So, okay, so here's what I'm going to ask you. You've got that in your mind. We're going to come back to that number in a second. But I'm going to ask you to do something. This is the interactive part of the process. I'm actually going to ask you to work with somebody next to you. And I actually want you to tell a story of a time when you have done great work. Okay, just humor me on this, okay? It's a fun little exercise. Now, before we get, so this is what I'm going to ask you to do straight away. Just find the person you want to tell this story to, okay? For some of you, you may need to move just a bit, but otherwise it's just a question of looking to your right or your left and go, yeah, I don't really know you, but I'll talk to you, okay? Fine, so just do that now. Find your partner. I promise you this is a painless experience. Excellent. Introducing yourselves, that's good. All right. Hold 10. Hold 10. I'm going to release you on this exercise. It's only going to spend 3 minutes each on this, okay? But before I get you going on telling a story of great work, I want to give you 3 things to make this easier for you. Here's the first thing. The person with the longest hair is going to go first. Okay? That saves you spending the first 2 minutes going, do you want to do this? Shall I do it? Yeah. Okay, longest hair goes first. Here's the second thing I want you to know about great work. Great work is not necessarily a moment of public triumph. It's not necessarily a moment where the crowd applauds and the beam of light comes down from heaven and you get a medal and it's all a success and everybody goes hurrah. Because you know that sometimes great work is private, or it's unseen, or it's not recognized. Sometimes it doesn't even look like a success. And I'll give you a very quick story from my own past to give you a sense of this. When I was 17, I finished high school in Australia and took a year out and went to England. And I had a really clear plan about why I was going to England. I was going to learn how to drink beer in English pubs, and I was going to go traveling around Europe. And I had this job lined up at a school. And I basically thought, you know what, at the school, I'll be kind of the junior deputy assistant athletics coach, moving cones around a field perhaps, but really having fun. But anyway, what happened was I showed up, and the school, who'd never done anything like this, hired anybody like me, said, would you like to do some teaching? And because I had just seen this movie called To Sir with Love. Now, I don't know if any of you have seen this movie. It's kind of old, but Sidney Poitier walks into this sort of inner city school full of troubled, rebellious teenagers who happen to be really good singers, and basically transform them overnight, and they sing songs to him, and it's fabulous, and it's a tale of redemption and glory. And I went, I'm going to do that. Right? I'm going to have these kids, they're going to love me, they're going to sing songs to me, they're going to talk about me to their grandchildren. They're going, you know, I was a troubled teenager, but now look at me, thanks to Michael. Right? So I get given these classes, and I get a range of classes to teach, and I'm only 17, so I'm kind of anxious about it. I get given one class in particular. There are only 10 kids in the class. I'm like, that's awesome, because if you know anything about teacher-kid ratios, 1 to 10, perfect, right? Show up at the class. 6 of the kids, profoundly deaf, right? So I show up, I have an Australian accent. I have a speech impediment, right? And I have a cleft lip and palate, so I have odd lips. So the deaf kids are like, we have no idea what's going on around here, right? The other 4 kids, ADHD, right? So they didn't even know I was in the classroom, right? So for 2 terms teaching these kids, it's chaos, right? It's a disaster. And there was a moment where I had all 10 kids reading at the same time. I mean, it was only about 10 minutes long, but it was a moment. But that's not the great work moment. The great work moment is this. One of the kids, Johnny, picks up a chair, throws it through a window. Exactly. So you can imagine, right? Broken glass everywhere, kids crying, kids beating up the kids who are crying. And as I'm standing there, I'm thinking to myself, this is really not going well. Right? If the headmaster walks in now, I'm kind of screwed, right? Because short of setting the school on fire, this is one step down from that, right? But even now, and this is 25 years ago, even now, thinking about how I kind of self-manage myself, like calm myself down and calm the kids down and kind of got everybody to relax and get control back of that classroom, it still stands out as a moment of great work for me. A moment where I was challenged and pushed and kind of rose to the occasion. So as you think about the story you're about to tell, I want you to realize that it doesn't have to be a moment of public triumph. It can be a moment where you're like, you know what? It didn't look good from the outside, but inside it was a peak moment for me, a moment where I grew, I stretched, I made a difference. That's the second thing I wanted to tell you. Here's the third thing. It's simply the difference between plot and narrative. Now here is a plot. The queen dies, the king dies. Pretty straightforward, right? Here is a narrative. The king and the queen were childhood sweethearts. They married, the kingdom flourished, all was well, the peasants were happy, the fields were full of grain, the sun seemed to be in the sky permanently, all was blissfully great. Until the evil prince arrived. And the evil prince poisoned the queen, and she died a terrible, painful death. And the king, of course, was brokenhearted because she was his one true love. So he challenged the evil prince to a duel, and they fought a mighty duel, back and forth, swords flashing in the sunlight. And finally, the king managed to kill the evil prince, stabbed him through his black, treacherous heart. But the king was mortally wounded, and whispering the queen's name on his very last breath, he died. Men have a gift for plot. Women, more of a gift for narrative. So guys, you're going to have 3 minutes each to tell your story, okay? Stretch it out, okay? It's a peak moment of your life. See if you can make it last 3 minutes, okay? Particularly for the guys, if I see you sitting in pairs, like a minute and a half, we're kind of done here. I'm going to have to kind of walk around and slap you or something, all right? Tell a good story. Bring it to life. What was going on? What was the challenge? Why was it difficult? Why was this a peak moment for you? Okay, tell a good story. Right. So you're going to have 3 minutes each. I've got little bells that I'm going to ding so you know when to swap over. Long-haired person goes first. Doesn't have to be a moment of success. It just has to be a great work moment for you, a peak moment for you. And tell a good story. Make it last 3 minutes. Tell a good one. Is that all clear? Rock and roll. 3 minutes start now. Go for it. Okay, fantastic. Step number 1, thank the person you've just been speaking to, okay? Say thank you to them. Secondly, if you don't know this person particularly well, remind them of their name because they've probably forgotten it, right? And you've probably forgotten theirs as well. So just remind each other of your names. And let me ask you this. What's it like hearing somebody else's great work story? What's it like? Exciting, inspiring, cool. What else? Contagious in a good way, yep, I hope, maybe. What else? Passion. It's kind of cool, isn't it? Right? They get that little sparkly eye thing going, okay? And they're kind of it's like lunchtime and they're kind of lit up about stuff, right? Because they're like, and what's happening in their brain is their neurons are actually firing, their neural pathways are firing in the same way it fired when they were experiencing that. And what's happening in your brain is your neurons are firing as well. That's why you've got this sense of empathy with them. So there's this great sense of lighting up. What's it like telling your own story of great work? It's easy? Fantastic? Fun? Anybody find it not difficult? Did anybody find it difficult? Slightly awkward to get going on it? Yeah, a few of you. You know what? That's totally natural. I ask people around the world to tell these stories, and pretty much everywhere I go, there's some people going, we kind of don't do that around here, you know? It's not very Australian or British or Canadian or Italian or Czech. It's kind of not like culture. You know, in Texas, they seem to be okay with it. In Texas, everybody's like, woo, yeah, I can tell that story. But pretty much everywhere else, there's a point of resistance around it, right? But what I find is that when people get going on it, it can actually be, once you're into the story, it's actually pretty cool. But let me ask you this. Apart from it being a kind of nice feel-good moment at lunchtime here, how might this be useful for you in your quest to do more great work?
Reminds you of work you've done before.
So it reminds you of work you've done before, so it creates you know what, I can actually do that and I actually remember what doing great work feels like. How else could it be useful? You have no idea? Is that what that means?
No, but sort of, if your day is full of good work, where would you find time to do great work?
Right, so if your day is full of good work, and that is the big challenge, right? That's at the heart of this, which is like, you've got so much good work, how do you find time to do great work? Luckily, I've written a book to help you with that. But thanks for that segue. Any other reasons why this might be a useful thing to do, this telling the story? Yeah?
It reminds you of what the kernels were that were exciting, so you can think about how to get that in your kernel.
Right, remind you of the kernels, that what is exciting, how to get it to the neuron, and that's the essence of it. Because when I tell you my story, I do not actually want to go back and teach 10-year-olds with learning disabilities again. That is not the career path I hope to be on. But behind my story are absolutely the kernels, the themes, the values that actually fuel my great work now. Taking a risk, kind of going out into the chaos, messy parts and going, what's going on around that? Teaching, sharing information, serving people who don't get served all the time. Those are themes that are recurring themes for me in my great work. And here's the thing, as you hear your story, in that story are the themes for your current and future great work. It's a question of looking beyond the sort of the facts of the story to what are the themes beneath that. Now, I just want to spend a couple of quick minutes before we wrap up. You remember I asked you to draw that circle in your head about how much good work, bad work, good work, great work? Out of interest, is anybody going, you know what, I have more than, let's say, 50% great work at the moment? Anybody saying yes to that? Okay, cool. It's rare. I think it's probably about 1 in 100 somebody sticks up their hand and then nobody wants to sit next to them at lunch. Like, bastard, what are you doing? And how are you getting away with that? Here's the numbers that most people say. Most people say they're doing somewhere between 0 and 25% great work, 10 to 40% bad work, and the rest, the bulk of it, 40 to 80%, is good work. And your point is exactly right. The biggest challenge is how do you get out of the way of all the good work that's coming at you? Because when I ask people about what's getting in the way of you doing more great work, is anybody here, just so I check, anybody here going, I have too much great work. I have too much of the meaningful, impactful work I love, and I'm trying to get rid of some of that. I mean, I've had 3 people in my whole history of asking that question stick up their hand, and I do not think they understood the question. That's the theory I'm working with. And I basically think that in terms of asking what gets in the way, I think it falls into 2 different buckets. There is a them, right? If only they gave me some more money, gave me some more people, didn't keep changing their mind, weren't such a lousy leader, weren't such a confused customer, weren't this, weren't that, did this, did that. There's definitely a they. And I know some of you will, Dilbert's a feature of our corporate life, and this may make some of you laugh. I don't know what the real culture of meetings is like at Google, but that speaks to a lot of people in a lot of organizations. But the more interesting place to look is actually, how are you responsible for your great work? And this is, of course, the big theme around optimize your life, which I know is a big theme at Google at the moment, which is what are the choices you're making in terms of the work that you can do to actually help find and do more great work. And I'll give you 3 core themes I think you need to be able to do great work. Here's the first. You need focus. And focus works 2 ways. Focus works both internally. What do I care about? What matters to me? That great work story is a great little piece to do that internal focus. But it's also a piece about being more active around looking around you to say, where are there opportunities to do great work in my organization and my part of Google? Focus is the first one. The second one, courage. Because it's one thing to know what great work might be, it's another thing to start it and get going on the path. Because ironically, one of the measures of doing great work is that somewhere, someone is a little disappointed in you. If everybody's happy, you're probably doing a lot of good work. If somebody's a bit let down, you're probably on the path of great work, because you're making some choices about what to say yes to and what to say no to. And the third thing you need is resilience. How do you keep going when you want to give up, when it gets too hard, when you stumble off the path, when you go through what Seth Godin would call the dip? How do you keep going there? Focus, courage, and resilience. And of course, that's kind of what's in the book, is about tactics and ways and means of actually getting you to get the focus, to find the courage, and to maintain the resilience to keep going on your great work. Cool. Here's the last thing I want to ask you to do before we turn it over to Q&A. I just want you to turn to the person you've been talking to, the person you're telling stories with, and I have a quick coaching question for you, which is this. What, if anything, was most useful for you from this little talk? What was most useful for you? So just a minute or so, turn to the person next to you, have a quick conversation. What are you taking away? What was most useful? Cool. So that's my piece. Before I move over and start signing books, for those of them that want the book signed, any questions, comments, reflections? Yeah.
So, from what I've noticed is great, I mean, I don't know if I'm getting the great work versus good work distinction correctly, but great work kind of happens in moments.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's like that one moment, like you said, when this happened, that suddenly made you grow disproportionately.
Right.
I don't see how that squares up with the thing of aim to have a larger percentage of your time.
That's a brilliant question. Great work seems to happen in moments. How does that fix with trying to increase the general percentage of amount of great work in your life? So I think you're right. Those peak moments happen in moments. But I think as you look back in your life, you can go, this general theme was a sense of doing my great work. So for instance, writing my book, definitely great work for me. Definitely not a whole series of peak moments. In fact, lots of it was sheer bloody misery, right? Exactly. First draft, fantastic. By the way, the 9th draft of a book, you hate the book, you hate yourself, you want to kill yourself, it is awful, right? And so there's a sense that actually, and for me there's something very powerful, and I think that you do this very well in Google, at least from what I understand, is defining a great work project and going, this is the project that defines great work because it connects to impact and it connects to meaning. And recognizing that as you focus on that project, there are moments of misery, doubt. That's why you have the need for courage and resilience. So your point is spot on. Cool. What else? Yeah.
How do you factor in, say, general attitude? That, you know, I know people who, like from my observation, it looks like they're just doing good work, but you get to know them, you realize that they have an attitude that they always find ways to perfect. So they find a higher level of engagement in whatever they do.
Yeah.
And it's something I'd like to do, but
Yeah. So your question, how do you factor in attitude? Because there are some people who, on an objective level, you may go, I see that as good work, not great work. But for them, they may be going, actually, the way I'm doing this is great work for me.
Something like that.
Yeah. So here's the thing about defining great work, as I'm doing it here, it is a subjective definition. It's not what other people see it as, it's what stretches you and matters to you. And of course, what you're trying to find is the sweet spot between what you care about and what matters to you, and what your organization cares about. That's the sweet spot that you want to try and increase. And the more that's aligned, the happier you are in the role you have. So part of this challenge is, and this happens if you're a manager and a leader, is going, my job is to try and, one of my jobs as a leader is to help my people fulfill their potential and stretch and grow and be who they are. It's to try and figure out what that actually looks like for them. And here's the value of the great work story. I mean, if you think about your career so far, and you think about that story you told about great work, removing the language, but just in general, has anybody been asked to tell that story, say more than, let's say, 5 times in their career so far? Yeah, it's kind of like if you rule out job interviews, it kind of drops down to 0 for most people. It's like that, today was the first time. And so for most of us, we don't actually have a sense of what my team's great work might truly be. If I was to ask you, what do you think your boss's great work really is? Do you think you'd know that? Or do you think you'd be going, I'd take a guess, but I'm not quite sure? And for a lot of us, there's a sense of, what's my great work? So part of it's around self-definition around that, and then going, how do we fit that into what we're trying to accomplish as a team or as an organization? I'm not sure I entirely answered your question, but I answered a question that I made up in my head. Okay, sounds perfect. Brilliant. Anything else? Yes, please.
So I wonder if you've given this talk at other organizations that have some degree similar kind of dilemmas we might have in certain functions. So I work in marketing. We work with a lot of different kind of product groups and things.
Yep.
And sometimes we feel stretched to try to do great work for all of our stakeholders in product.
Mm-hmm.
We'd like to, but we have to make certain decisions in prioritization. Sometimes, unfortunately, what happens is we end up having to make these decisions in ways that do leave certain people, sometimes very important stakeholders, in the sense of higher organizational hierarchy, less than fully satisfied.
Yeah.
Have you worked in other organizations where you have the same kind of dilemma, and what kind of insights might you have to share in those circumstances so that you can end up doing more great work for the kind of the things you really want to add fuel to, and less kind of good work to just kind of...
Yep. So it's a great question. It's like trying to manage different stakeholders. They all have expectations that you, in marketing, important, but hub role, will do great work for them all the time, and you're kind of stretched because you go, we can't actually do that. So you have to make some tough calls. So I would say that that is typical of every organization I work with. And I think the trap a lot of people fall into is going, I'll just try and do everybody at kind of the same level. And I think one of the powerful things about this model is it can help you go, truly, where are we really going to focus in terms of being exceptional, kind of going at the end of the year, at the end of 2011, here are the 2 or 3 things I want to boast about to say that's where we totally rocked it. But the killer for this is actually to change the standard of delivery for some of the work that you do. Away from, we're striving for excellence in everything that we do, which in my judgment is impossible, because it just kind of creates something less than excellence in everything you do. But to actually say the standard that we are striving to do for a lot of our work is adequate, not excellent. And I know that kind of sounds, I mean, I can hear the teeth sucking as I say that. Ooh, I don't know, adequate, really? But adequate means good enough. And the thing is that when you define the work and you look at your work, and one of the exercises in the book helps you do this, map number 7. When you define the work that you go, this is not great work for me, it's good work or bad work, you need to define what adequate is, because every time you overwork that piece of work, you remove energy and time and focus you can give to the great work you truly want to give. And I would say there's one other piece which is around, it matters to have you figure out who really matters in terms of your stakeholders. Because what a lot of people do is they go, kind of everybody matters equally. And it's a bit Machiavellian, but you have to make choices about which relationships matter, which people of influence matter, and how do I then make the people who I'm disappointing be disappointed, but in a way that doesn't leave them to what in Australia you would say, spit the dummy. You know, you don't want to have them, leave them disappointed, but still with a good relationship. Is that useful at all? Yeah, great, thanks.